Welcome to IdentityTheftSecrets.com. This is Jonathan Kraft, and I am here today interviewing Scott Mitic, who is the CEO and co-founder of TrustedID. How are you doing today, Scott?
I'm great, thanks, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for taking a few minutes with us today. Well, let's just get started right into this. Can you review for me the background behind TrustedID? I mean, what started it, who started it, and why was TrustedID started?
So I started the company about 3 years ago with a co-founder, and the genesis of the business was in finding ways for consumers to be able to proactively prevent identity theft. I had a wife who was victimized twice in the course of about 3 years, and while looking at the experience she had, realized that there was really no effective solution available to anyone in the U.S. to help stop identity theft before it starts, and that's what led to TrustedID.
And I know you've got a partner in the business as well.
I do. I co-founded the company with Omar Ahmad, who's also on our board now.
Talk a little bit more about, you said your wife actually was a victim twice. Can you explain kind of what happened with her identity theft and how that took place?
Yeah, so the first time was a felon in the state of Florida who assumed her identity, committed crimes using her name, and also got credit in her name. The second time was check fraud. Someone printed checks using my wife's name and her account number and passed bad checks. So, as was or is the case very often with identity theft, the financial loss that we incurred or she incurred, not nearly as significant as the time loss that was incurred, and that's everything from standing at the police station waiting for an officer to show up to take your report, down to trying to track down what credit was opened in her name, and then finding a way to convince a lender or a creditor that that is actually not her debt, but that of a felon that she's never met.
Which I imagine that process is very difficult. I mean, I know from having talked with a bunch of people that they've had some real challenges trying to prove that they're not themselves.
Well, yeah, exactly, and I think that's going to only intensify over the course of the coming months or years as the credit crunch comes upon us. There are more and more people looking for perhaps easy ways to get out of their debt. You can understand the lender being somewhat skeptical when a customer calls and says, "You know what? That's not really me who got that card." It's a natural reaction, I guess, to any lender to think twice or to require a little extra proof before they simply dismiss the work of an identity thief.
Well, and you said before that you didn't really see anything after looking for ways to help your wife. You didn't really see anything in the market that was there to kind of proactively prevent identity theft, and I think that's part of the reason you started TrustedID. What does proactive identity theft prevention mean, and what is that? How do you do that?
The only way for a consumer to even think about understanding or protecting against identity theft as of a couple of years ago was credit monitoring, and that's still obviously a huge part of this business, of this industry, is built around credit monitoring. By some estimates, there are up to 30 million Americans who are subscribing to some form of credit monitoring service. And that credit monitoring is good, but it's certainly not the best. And the reason it's not the best is it simply alerts you after an identity thief has already started to manipulate your identity or has already started to commit the crime.
Anything, I mean, we'll keep this kind of short. I know you've probably got a bunch of things to run to and different projects to work on. I really appreciate you taking a few minutes with us today. Do you have anything that you'd kind of like to close out with or have people know about TrustedID?
My final word of wisdom to anyone who's listening is that identity protection is something you just need to start thinking about doing. Just the same way that you insure your car, your home, or your health, you need to start thinking about protecting and insuring your identity as well. And as you look in the marketplace, as you look for solutions that either you're going to do yourself or you're going to trust a company to help you with, just think about proactivity. Think about what we were discussing earlier around finding ways to lock that door rather than simply finding out about it once it's already happened.
Awesome. Well, Scott, thank you very much for taking a few minutes. Obviously, if people have questions, we can have you back in the future. I'm sure they will have questions about Trusted ID and what you're doing. So thank you very much for taking a few minutes today.
My pleasure, Jonathan.
This has been an audio interview with IdentityTheftSecrets.com. We can be found online at www.identitytheftSecrets.com. IdentityTheftSecrets.com.